Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to share this with you today for the 40-hour online summit. These are some ideas that I've implemented in my school library, and I hope you find at least one useful idea in this presentation today. My name is Osa Oyegun. I am completing a master's in library and information science at the San Jose State University. I also have a master's of education in curriculum and instruction from George Mason University. And I've been the whole school librarian at the American International School of Abuja. We call it ISA. And our school goes from preschool through grade 12. I've been an educator for 15 years. I taught EAL and then transitioned into the elementary classroom, which I loved, and did for over 12 years, and am now in the library. So, during this presentation, I'm going to share some ideas for how to encourage student agency in the library, why we should encourage agency, and how I do that. And some of these strategies may seem familiar if you've been in the classroom, and if you have taken the 40-hour teacher work week course with Angela Watson. So if they seem familiar, wonderful, you're already doing some of these things. If not, I hope you can get something out of this presentation. So this is our new circulation desk that we got at the beginning of this school year. I'm very proud of it. We have a beautiful library. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about our school and our library. So you can make comparisons to your own situation and see what would work and what wouldn't work for you. We are located in Abuja, which is Nigeria's capital city. We are an embassy affiliated school, which means many of our students are children of embassy employees. We also have many students whose parents work for multinational organizations or government agencies from other countries. So it's a very diverse population from all over the world. And we also have a significant Nigerian population, which is very nice. Um, when COVID happened, we lost our librarian, and we didn't have one for about 2 years when the school was online. And so, what I inherited was a pretty stagnant library that hadn't been weeded in forever, definitely longer than 4 years. And it's a 20,000 item physical collection. And so I began that process last year, when I took over the library and just began to make observations about what was needed. Now, our early childhood and elementary students get weekly library lessons, which is really nice. They're about 30 minutes long. And then with middle school and high school, I do projects and orientation to the library, just special projects that I plan or workshops that I plan with their subject teachers. So, in this section, we are going to discuss why it's important to have student agency in the library. So, student agency really is the ability to promote and encourage student independence and ideas in their learning environment. And the research says that doing so, not just in little bits and pieces, here's one unit in which they'll be able to be more independent, but as a regular practice, that whenever they enter your classroom or your library, whatever the learning space is, even at home as a parent, it's to provide opportunities for students to have routines and tools to be independent in a safe way, because those routines actually build up their confidence and therefore make them want to be even more independent. And what's really beautiful about this in a learning space is that you know that you are able to trust your students. You can trust that they're doing the right thing when they're in the library or when they're in the classroom. So it's very friendly towards building them up to who they are, as they grow and mature. You start to see evidence of who they're to be. And as educators, it's our job to help them do so. So, student agency encourages higher engagement in lessons. I know that some of us have difficulty with maybe older students who do not pay attention during lessons, during reading. And the thing is, if we can get them interested in taking ownership of the library, of their learning, then that automatically increases engagement and it automatically stops that behavior that we see, because the majority of the students at the very least will look at that one student and say, hey, we're learning here, we're doing something here, do you want to join us? So for the rest of this time, I'm going to share photographs and examples of how I've done this in my library, because there were no routines. The kids were a bit wild, and because many of them live internationally and do not make a habit of visiting libraries, public libraries, they don't know how to be in the library. And so those were some of the things that I had to do, was establish routines for being in the library, establish independent use of tools, and just simplifying what it means to be in the library as a learner. So this is a part of our everybody section in the library. I apologize for this very rather long view. Um, but one of the things I did at the very beginning of the school year when I first entered the library was to establish routines. And you'll see at the very back of the library there is a door that is our side entrance, which is closest to the elementary and early childhood section of the school. And so I noticed that students would enter the library running and, speaking in loud voices. And one of the things I wanted to do was to just sort of get them to remember that they were entering a different sort of space. And so when they come for library lessons, they line up outside the door. And I'm usually waiting for them right inside the door so they can see me. And then I open the door and I greet them and I say, hello, grade 3. It's really lovely to see you. Here's what we're going to do today. And I remind them about the routine. If they've brought their devices, I say you're going to bring your devices and put them in the device holder. You put your water bottles on top of the device holder, and then we're going to enter the classroom, or we're going to browse for books. And if you brought books to return, you can take them to the circulation desk or put them in the book return box. And this way they know, all right, it's begun. We are entering the library and we are all going to be respectful of the library and anyone else who is in it. So really establishing those routines has helped, have students enter the library with the right frame of mind, and just practice being respectful. Okay, so I didn't mean to share this particular picture, but you'll see that there are sticky notes on the right side of the shelves where those stools are, and that's because we're still in the process of organizing our books. That was a big thing I did my first year, was to reorganize all the books because students couldn't find any books and neither could I. But that's for the next part. So how do we set up students for success and for, having ownership of the library? Some of the things I did was to put up iPads. We have these really tall columns all over the library. And so I had our IT department set up 3 iPads with Destiny Discover, so that anyone who entered the library could go to Destiny Discover and look for books in our catalog. And so I had to teach the students how to access Destiny Discover during our library lessons. And so they go to the iPads and they can search for books. They can either type in the title or use the microphone function to speak it, and it'll type the title. And then I also had to teach them how to find the sublocation of the book, um, which I'll show shortly. When we reorganized the library, we also had to change the sublocations to match our new organization, and simplify it in a way that anyone could understand without needing help. So now they know how to search the catalog. We also have a read alike menu there. If they don't know what kinds of book to look for, they can use the read alike menu that says, if you like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, consider reading these books. And so they look at the book they want, they can go back to the catalog, or they can come to the circulation desk to ask me or my library assistant. Now, I understand that many school librarians do not have assistants. So, if you do not have an assistant, then you can train your students to be very, very good at looking up books in the catalog and understanding when we have a book versus when the book has been borrowed, or how to reserve the book so that when it comes back in, they can borrow it themselves. The third picture, this basket on the right, um, has a sign on it that says, "Don't remember where you got that book? It's okay, just put it in here." Now, that sign was created by our Readers Advisory Council, who are middle and high school students who help out in the library and come up with ideas. And basically, every library has this issue. Patrons pick up books from one shelf. They end up at the other side of the library. They don't feel like walking all the way back, and then they hide the book in the shelves. And this is a big problem, of course. We won't find the book until we get to that particular section or if we happen to walk by. So we're trying our best to encourage all the students to just drop the books in the basket. Don't feel bad. Don't feel like you have to help us reshelve the book. Just put it in the basket. It's absolutely fine. And here's why. If you don't put it in the basket, we won't find that book again for a very long time. So just teaching responsibility, teaching the whys and the why nots, and making sure that everyone feels comfortable using the space. Another strategy I use for encouraging student independence and agency in the library is just providing these new signs. So you see these signs hanging from the ceilings. They didn't exist before last year. The library was somewhat sectioned, into everybody books or early childhood, elementary, chapter books, graphic novels, and the middle school and high school section. But within the middle school and high school section, our adult books were mixed in, and then the professional books were sort of tucked away in the corner. So when I decided to reorganize the whole library, I made as many signs as possible. And I think that's still a work in progress because we could also have a sign that says early childhood books. I'm still trying to figure out how to make that happen and where to put the sign, but everything is much clearer now for the children when they enter the library. They know where to find all the books. They know that if they go to the middle school and high school section, yes, they're welcome to read many of the books in the nonfiction section. They're welcome to read many of the books in the fiction section, but there are books with mature stickers on there. And because our community is such a diverse community, the children have to be mindful and we have to be mindful about what they're picking up and how it affects them. But that's a conversation for another session. So, as I said, I organized or reorganized the entire library. And last year, when I did this, it was towards the end of the school year for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I had two library assistants at the time, and our head of school very kindly um, allowed us to hire a substitute. So there were four of us just sorting through all of the books and weeding as we went. Um, so that we could put them in the different genres and create different genres. So these baskets are in the everybody section of our library. All of the books in our everybody section are in baskets because, again, to encourage independence there, we wanted children to be able to pull out a basket, look for the book they're looking for, and then put it right back where they found it. And you'll notice that the baskets have labels. These are for series. So if that's there's a basket there that says the loser list. So the label on it has a picture and the title says loser list. And some of the baskets even have more than one series. You'll also notice that the shelf lip has labeling as well. We want to make it as clear as possible which kinds of books they're going to find there, since this is a genreified library. So these are realistic fiction series, and each section begins with like realistic fiction, single books, and then the series. So realistic, series, mystery, series, adventure series, and so on and so forth. So this is what our sublocations now look like in Follett Destiny. So you'll see this is the Humphrey series. And if a student is looking for these books, they'll look on their device or the library device, and it says E Adventure 6. They know E is for elementary or everybody, and they know to walk to shelf 6 because all the shelves are numbered. We've got large numbers on all the shelves. And they just look on the shelf lip and look for adventure, and they're very easily able to find what they need. So it was very, very important to encourage students going to look for books because, like I said in the beginning, not only were they unable to find books for themselves, they needed help maybe like 95% of the time. And yes, the librarian is here to help them, but we're also teaching them how to look for information and seek what they're looking for. And then if they still can't find it, then they can come back to us and ask for help. So one of the strategies I employ in our library is dynamic shelving, which is a term I learned from Kelsey Bogan, who is this really lovely librarian who I think came up with the term and developed the strategy. And it's just a strategy of turning your shelves from static bookshelves into dynamic bookshelves by facing the books out on every shelf in order to garner interest. Because when kids are looking for books, it's very easy for them to say, I can't find anything to read. This is really hard. I don't know what to read. So if you face out the books, imagine walking into a bookstore in the US, a Barnes and Noble or something like that, and think about the way the books are advertised and marketed to the patron. So that's what you're trying to do here. You face out interesting looking books to make someone stop and judge the book by the cover and say, this looks really nice. I'm going to pick it up. And I'm going to stop at this section and look even further. Now, our middle school and high school section do not have books in baskets. The section is also genreified, but we have left them still in Dewey order. So we're kind of doing Dewey light because our entire library is genreified. But it's just about making sure students can find what they need quicker. And I have to say that since we genreified the library, our circulation of nonfiction books has gone up. Like students are able to find what they need very quickly. They're able to look for books based on their interests, and that has been so gratifying to see. And then they come up to us and say, hey, where are all the drawing books? I went to the basket and they're gone. Well, everyone's borrowed them, and that's just really amazing. But also a mental note, maybe I should buy more drawing books. It's really nice to know exactly what they need. So, a new thing I did this year was to establish these after school activity groups. And this one is for middle school and high school students. It's called the Readers Advisory Council. And not only do they help us come up with ideas for the library, make posters for our ideas, contests, they've come up with an anonymous advice column, for things that teenagers like to talk to each other about. They make book talk videos promoting the books in our library. They came up with the idea for a suggestion box to be placed outside the front of the library, all sorts of things. So these are students who are really engaged in the use of the library, and they like to come in and organize the books sometimes. It's really, really wonderful to have them here, right? Because they also help us come up with new books, suggestions for new books for our collection. They say, "Hey, everyone's reading this. Um, I think we should add it to the collection." And so, building that relationship, building that community with students, and then having them go out and promote the library for you is really, really important. And this is the Junior Friends of the Library, the elementary version of that group for students in grades 2 to 5. They also come in and help organize books. They love organizing the books. We do crafts for different kinds of celebrations. They came in recently and made lanterns for celebrating the Lunar New Year. We read together sometimes, and they also come up with ideas for the library and suggest new books. So I just want to share very quickly some resources for gentrification if this is something you are considering doing for your library. These are some resources that I used when I was thinking about it. And dynamic shelving, the link will lead you to Kelsey Bogan's blog, Don't Shush Me. And then lastly, if you haven't gone through the 40-hour teacher work week with Angela Watson, I highly encourage you to do it because if you have not come from the classroom, it can be difficult to have some of those strategies in place for managing your class time with students. And so this is a really, really wonderful workshop, even if you have come in from the classroom. I think I'd been teaching for nearly a decade when I came across it, and I learned so much. And it's a productivity workshop, but it's really about changing the way you manage your time, being more efficient with your time, being more productive in ways that are intentional and in ways that are meaningful to both you, your students, and your colleagues. I hope that this has been helpful. Here are a couple of references that I used. And if you would like to keep in touch, here's my email address, oyegun@gmail.com. Enjoy the rest of the summit.